afternoon. My name is Dr. Karen Joseph, and I'm here for another installment of AIM Science. This week, we're going to be talking about air pressure. So air has pressure. Air pushes down on everything, including people, and it also presses down on the things that are on the earth, like water and plants and dirt. Air presses down on everything. And we're going to do some experiments today that are going to show that air pressure. We're going to do an experiment where we're going to put this egg in this bottle. Now you can see that this egg is bigger than the mouth of the bottle. So how's that going to work? I'm going to do it without breaking the egg, without doing any damage to the egg at all. So in order to do this, I'm going to need to move my camera so that you can see better. All right, let's see here now. I'll tip this down so that you can see the egg sitting on the bottle. So what we're going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my safety goggles, because whenever we're working with fire, we always want to have an adult helper and safety goggles. So the safety goggles are going to go on, and I'm going to be using a flame here, and I'm going to be using some paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold my paper up. I'm going to have I've got 2 strips of paper here. I'm going to fold them like this. And then I'm going to get ready to light the paper strips on fire. But first, I'm going to take a little bit of oil. I've just got some vegetable oil here. I'm just going to dip my finger in the vegetable oil and rub it around the mouth of the bottle. That just lubricates the mouth of the bottle so that you can, so the egg will slide in a little bit easier. And then I've also got some water here, and I'm going to put some water on the egg. Again, just to make the egg a little bit slipperier, to make the project work a little bit nicer. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my folded pieces of paper, and I'm going to be ready. Now, again, don't do this without an adult helper. So let's light the paper on fire. Fire experiments are always fun, aren't they? They're some of my favorite. All right, so we've got this fire burning nicely here, and I have a fireproof mat down underneath here. We're going to burn out? Nope. All right, ready? I'm going to drop this down into, and watch the egg. I'm not sure, actually, we may need to do this one again. Yeah, that didn't burn long enough, so let's do another one. Let's fold this one, another couple strips of paper. I need to make sure that the flame is really burning when I drop it down in there, and this one was going out just a little bit. So let's light this one on fire again. All right, so what's going to happen here is when I put this down inside the bottle, it's going to burn a little bit, and then we put the egg on there, and when it burns out, starting to pull on the egg a little bit. All right, let's do some troubleshooting, guys. What's happening here? This experiment works for me the 3 times that I tried it, and it's not working this time. So let's talk about, oh, you can see it's got a little pressure. Could you hear that? Oh, and there's some of the steam coming out. I'm not getting quite enough pressure to pull that down into the mouth of the bottle. Could be because there's so much smoke in there. So let's dump the things out that we've got. Remember, I've got this mat here. I'm going to blow out the smoke. All right, so we've blown out the smoke. We've got a pretty clear bottle again. And let's try this experiment again. We'll do the whole setup again. We'll rub the oil on the mouth of the bottle. We'll get the egg wet in the water that I have here. We'll set the egg there to wait, and let's try again to burn, to get this nice and on fire. I think what might be happening is that we're not using up enough oxygen because the flame is burning out before I drop it down in. So let's get a nice flame on this. All right, there. Oh, good thing I had a fireproof mat, isn't it? All right, are we going to work this time? Can you hear the bubbling? Now watch. I can see it starting to sink down in. There it goes. Well, all right, one more time. We're going to give this one more time because I know this experiment can work. And I really want you guys to see it. So I think, again, what's happening is that it's just not on fire long enough to use up. Now, well, I want you to see that there's some pressure being on this egg. Listen. Oh, look at that. And the smoke's coming out again. So let's try one more time. We're going to dump out the paper. We're going to blow out the smoke. You know, the truth is sometimes science experiments don't work the way we think they're going to work. Even though we practice them, there's always variables that change. So let's try again. We'll put the oil on. We'll get the egg wet in the water. And we're going to try it one last time. If this one doesn't work, then we'll go back to the drawing board. Maybe try this one another time. Maybe the egg is too big for the bottle. These are small eggs that I have, but maybe this egg is just a little bit bigger. Maybe the mouth of the bottle is a little bit too small. Maybe it's cold in my room, and so it's putting, the bottle is cold. All right, are we ready? Let's put that down in. All right, the flame is still burning in there, so I think this is going to work. Look at that. Ah, yay! It worked. All right, isn't that exciting when the experiment works the way you want it to? I think that's great. All right, so you guys saw that pop down in the bottle. You saw what happened when we finally got the flame burning. So clearly that was the problem. We kept trying until we got it right. And then we saw that when we had all the things right, all the parts of the experiment right, the experiment worked. So you can try this at home, but don't be surprised if it doesn't work the first time. Maybe you just need to use a colder, warmer bottle or a warmer room or a bigger fire. So let me move these things out of the way because I have one more experiment to show you. Now I'm going to explain while I'm moving all this out of the way what happened. So the egg wobbled a little bit when I first set it. I can take my goggles off for a minute now. The egg wobbled a little bit when I first set it on top of the bottle. The reason that it wobbled a little bit is because the heat inside there was causing the molecules to vibrate a little bit. And the egg then wobbled. But then when we first set the egg on the top, the pressure that was outside pushing down on the egg was exactly the same as the pressure inside the bottle pushing up on the egg. So the egg just stayed put. But when we dropped that flaming piece of paper down into the bottle, heat from that flame heated up all the molecules inside, and it used up the oxygen. So we know that oxygen, the fire, needs fuel and oxygen in order to burn. As the oxygen was being used up, the flame started going out. And as soon as we put that egg back on the top, all that oxygen was used up, and those molecules started to cool down. So there was less stuff in there, less oxygen molecules in there, fewer oxygen molecules in there, as well as cooler air molecules. And as they cooled, they condensed a little bit. That created a partial vacuum inside the bottle. And when that vacuum exerted pressure on the egg, it pulled that egg down inside, and it pulled it down pretty forcefully. You heard that plopping sound. It's kind of a fun sound to hear. So now let's do one more experiment that's going to show you what another example of air pressure experiment. So I'm going to put my goggles back on because I'm using fire again, and I'm going to bring this camera back down so that you'll be able to see. Sorry, I know that's a little much when it wobbles around like that. So for this experiment, we're also going to use matches or a lighter. I've got a plate here. I've got some water. I've got some food coloring, and I've got a candle. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to light the candle. You can either use regular matches, or I've got this little lighter that works really nicely. All right, we'll light that. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this beaker of water that I have right here. Remember, this is a beaker. A beaker is a kind of science equipment that we use in science. And I'm going to put some drops of food coloring in there. The food coloring isn't absolutely necessary. It just makes it a little bit easier for you to see what's going on. So I will swish that food coloring around. I will stir it just a little bit here. And let's see here. There we go. Stir that around so we've got some red water. And then I'm going to pour that water around the candle into the plate. So you'll start to see the water coming up on the plate. There we go. That's good. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this glass jar, which the mouth is just a little bigger than the candle. I'm going to put this on top. So let's start by making a hypothesis. What do you think is going to happen when I cut off the oxygen by putting the glass jar down on top of the candle? Remember, fire needs oxygen and fuel in order to burn. What happens when we cut off the oxygen supply? Well, two things are going to happen. The first thing is the flame's going to go out. That's a good hypothesis if you came up with that one. And the second thing that's going to happen is when those air molecules cool in there after the flame goes out, and when the oxygen molecules get used up by the fire, then we're going to create a vacuum inside this jar. And the vacuum inside the jar is going to pull on the water. And you watch around the bottom of the jar and see what happens as the vacuum pulls up on the water. Okay, I'm going to move the camera a little bit closer so you can see really nicely. Can you see that? Look at that going up. As soon as the flame went out, look how far up in the jar that water was pulled by the vacuum that was created when we cooled down those air molecules quickly and when the oxygen molecules were used up. That's another really fun one to do. All right, well, that's all I have this week. I will be back next week, and I would love it if you would join me. Next week, we're going to do some experiments making batteries out of unusual things.